Hi, I'm Derek Herb with Evolution Wheel, and today this is round 2 video of our Pivot XT case study in Albion, Nebraska with our Pivot XT. It's our Pivot XT behind us on the end tower of this pivot. We showed you this in June when we were here. Corn was waist high at the time, and now it's over the top of my head. I'm a dirty mess because I've already been through the corn. We had about a tenth of rain this morning, just enough to get everything wet and make it wet when you're walking through the corn, but it's going to be 102 this afternoon, so I'll take it for right now. We were standing in this spot in June and showed you our Pivot XT versus the 11.2-38 on the next tower over, just in terms of, rutting and the differences that you're going to see and you can expect. This pivot's now at 10 passes for the season on this field, and the corn is at the brown silk stage. So cobs are starting to fill. This is a really critical time for yields and determining how good a crop you're about to have. There's a lot of water going down on this field. As you can see, not just from the pivot, but there was a couple rains that, 2 inches or in and around that mark, which, washed dirt from down up off the hills, and it's now down in this low spot. So we're going to turn the pivot on here after this, but basically you'll see the XT going through this low spot, a couple other spots in the field, and really just start to compare now that the corn is as tall as it is and as many rounds as there's been, really can start to compare that XT versus the 11.2-38 beside it. So stay tuned. We're going to show you the track depth next in this spot. We're also going to go over to the low silty spot that we showed you before, where there's just a huge wide spot of silt that the XT is going through with the end tower, and then the 11.2 beside it. So we're going to compare track depth in this video and just overall performance, so you can kind of see and start to tell the tale of the XT versus an 11.2-38 pneumatic tire. Okay, so you can see the pivot in the background. Corn's pretty tall, so we're trying to make the best of what we can do to really show you with dodging corn stalks in between, the pivot track at this point of the season. We're on the uphill side of the pivot, standing on the hill where it's got to climb out of the low spot here. You can basically see that there is a track. Basically I can tell the distinctive lug pattern of the tire in the track, and actually half the track is almost getting made from the runoff that happens from a heavy rain event through the middle of the track. So difficult to say, is it the track or the tire making the track deeper, or is it the runoff from the water? But I'd say we're, average track depth is maybe 2 inches, give or take, here on the hill climbing out. And that's at the very lowest. On the sides it's 0. So it just kind of depends on which part of the track I'm measuring, but you can see from the video yourself exactly what the track looks like. And we're going to take this now though and go over to the same spot where the 11.2-38 is climbing out of the hill, and you can kind of see the difference between the two starting to form. We'll show that to you next. So I'm actually standing over top and straddling the 11.2-38 track right now. You can see the track depth difference already between the 11.2-38 and our Pivot XT after 10 rounds. We're just gonna do the best we can to show you the track, just because of how the corn is at this time of year. You can actually pretty much lose an ankle in this track at this point, maybe a little deeper in some spots, but clearly you're really kind of starting to see the differences form between 11.2-38 pneumatic and our Pivot XT. I mean, my philosophy is, rather than deal with the track just in track depth and go taller with a tire, it's really just about get rid of the track altogether, and then you don't have to worry about it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pull my cell phone out, and I'm going to just start the video at this track, and then I'm going to walk back over to our Pivot XT tire on the end tower and just show you that track as well, and then that way you can kind of see the difference. Okay, so we just finished shooting the difference in this part of the field. Here's the pivot track on the 11.2-38. As you can see, I can put my foot in it and about lose my ankle. This is the top, and coming over, we're about ankle height, just a little bit above it. And this is on the upward slope coming out of the gully draw on our pivot. And this is cameraman Adrian up here, just finished shooting my little rip on the pivot track. And basically, I gotta go this way, and I'm just gonna walk straight. It's just like deer hunting and pushing bush. through the corn, and I'm going to show you the Pivot XT track on the end tower right beside this one, just so you can see the difference for yourself. And not trying to hide nothing from nobody, just want to get you the best information possible if you're thinking about going to airless tires, or you know, you're thinking about what size of tire do I go to. You know, this is an 11.2-38, and most guys are running them for because they're getting deep tracks, and that taller tire helps them get, you know, to where their gearboxes aren't dragging at the end of the season if they have running issues. But it's always good to, I say, not make a rut to start with, and then you don't have to worry about a tall tire. Our Pivot XT is a 14.9/24 size, so it is a touch wider, but you know, shorter. And again, it's just about not making that track. So I think we're getting pretty close here. I haven't tripped yet. A little bit more bush to push. Okay, so this is our same track. Pivot is up over here, and yeah, this is the Pivot XT track, same field, just a little bit over, and walking up the hill with it. You know, you can kind of see it a little bit there. You can see the lugs in the track, you know, just where the XT was. You can also see a little bit of water running down, but you know, same thing. Here's my boot, and this is the track. Sorry. So, you know, kind of like up my half my foot, something like that, give or take. Not saying there's no track, because you do see the lugs, but there's just a lot less. So 10 rounds on this field with a pivot, and it's just going to keep going. We're probably going to hit somewhere between 16 and 18 rounds this year, being as dry as it is. You know, it's July 25th, and not a lot of rain. A lot of the dry land is burning up already. So it's one of those years where it's just constant irrigation, and this is where we're at after 10 rounds. Okay, so we're in a low spot of this field, and just want to show you, you know, the end tower's here, Pivot XT is about to come through, but before we turn on the water, just want to really show you that this is something that a pivot tire has to navigate on a regular basis. Basically, this is an area that the tire's been going through regularly. You know, there's a track coming in, a track going out, but nothing in the middle. Well, it's because the heavy rains come through here and blowing all this dirt and material out off the hills and into this low spot. Important to note that, you know, you need a tire that can handle that kind of adversity throughout the season, because, you know, the pivot is going to be in one side of the field or the other, and then rain's going to come through, might be an inch, 2 inches, whatever the case is. And if it's going to move material like this, the next time that tire comes around, it has to deal with that heavy silt that just got laid down by the storm. But just remember the importance of needing a tire that can handle that kind of adverse and constantly changing situation. It's not like you just keep going round and round in circles and things never change. This is an example of change in the field, and that the tire needs to be able to handle it. Okay, so we're standing in the low spot where the 11.2-38 is going through. Just over there is where the Pivot XT is going through. Not that bad in the bottom. The only thing I would note is that, you know, the silt washed through that low spot as well, except the track was deep enough to where it didn't fill it all the way in, whereas over where the XT was, it was completely filled with silt. Okay, so we're on the coming down high side of the pivot that's right behind me, and that is the 11.2-38 that's been running. You can see the track there, and again, same kind of story as the other side. I can actually, you know, step down into it and get my ankle into it all the way or a little bit more. So very similar results coming down the hill and then as it is coming out of the hill. But having said that, maybe slightly less track coming in, just because that tire is not trying to, you know, power grip its way and get up the hill, which is going to lead to a little bit deeper rut. But this is what we got going on here. Let's again go back to the end tower where we have our Pivot XT and look at the track difference right in front of that tire so that we can kind of compare apples to apples. Okay, so this is our 11.2-38 track. Again, I just put my my ankle in there, and you can basically see, like, I can, you know, lose my ankle. It's what is that, 8 inches, give or take. Here's the top. There's where it's at on my ankle. So 11.2-38 pivot track. And that's coming down into the hill. This is cameraman Adrian. We just finished recording the long form video of this, and this is the 11.2-38 tire. So again, that's the track. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to corn crash my way straight over, and let's look at the 14.9-24 Pivot XT tire from us, and then let's look at the track difference. Again, this is coming down into the hill, down the hill into the bottom of the gully, and Pivot's just watered it, so its tracks are a little fresher, and reminds me of being 14 years old and deer hunting and pushing bush, and my uncle sent me into the thickest stuff because he didn't want to go in there himself. Oh yeah, you're gonna shoot a big buck, he says. A little older and wiser these days, and but childhood memories are good, right? All right, where's our track here? Nope, not quite there yet. Okay, look at that Pivot XT. Here we are. Okay, that's that tower, and then here's our track, fresh tracks from the Pivot XT, and again, climbing up and out of that hill, or sorry, down into that hill. You can see the water if you zoom in close, just from where like the water ran down the hill from big rainfall event. And yeah, here's the track. So track's a little bit wider, of course, just wider tire, which leads to more flotation. But you know, if I put my foot down in there, the track is kind of coming up just above my foot, top of my foot or something like that, down in here. And a little bit of a different story than a little bit deeper rut on a 11.2-38. So this is the track compared to the 11.2-38. You can see the lugs in it, but it's significantly shallower than what that 11.2-38 was. I mean, I could put my foot in it and it's still goopy and messy underneath, but I'm not losing an ankle. I'm probably like ankle height or just a little less than that, depending on where I'm standing. That's where we're at after 10 rounds in this field. Let's go check out the other spot. Okay, so we're in the biggest low spot of this field here in Albion with our Pivot XT running. In this portion of the field, this is straight up loon shit, and that's the best way to call it. I'm standing on it, it's hard packed, but if I was to put my foot in there, which maybe I should just do and show you, you know, you're gonna sink out of sight. So like, yeah, there you go. My boots are covered in mud, and I'm already muddy, so I really don't care at this point today. But having said that, yeah, this is just like straight silt and gumbo in this portion of the field, because all the heavy rains that come in here comes off the hills down into here and then just pushes through. So like, this is the end tower section of this, and we'll walk back and look at the 11.2. This is the track that our Pivot XT tire made through here. Distance across from over here to my right all the way down to the left is about 60-65 yards, and that tire is fighting that all the way through, that grease and gumbo. Now with that tread pattern, the way it's designed, you know, it's designed to be staggered so that it's constantly breaking up that ridge gumbo and getting it through here. We're about 10 passes on this pivot so far in this location and going through here, and it hasn't been stuck yet. The farmer has said that he hasn't had to look at this pivot at all, so he's pretty happy. There is a track here, I'm not gonna lie, but if you're sinking like that with my foot, then there's gonna be a track. Really what I care about is how far did it go? Did it get stuck? But the pivot still has to make it through here to keep going around and doing the rest of the field. So this is where we're at. We're gonna show you some highlights of the track here, and then we're gonna walk you over to the 11.2-38 and show you that, and just show you the differences between the two in this situation. Okay, so this is the 11.2-38 track. We're about 20 yards across with this track. Come down the hill, go in, and come out. So you can tell the two different terrains, the difference between each other. So the track is going to be very similar. It's a little bit narrower just because of the width of the tire. We're at 10 passes going on this pivot around the field, and this is where we're at in this stage of the season. So we'll come back and see how this progresses throughout the season. Okay, so just to kind of summarize things and wrap things up here, this is our case study with the Pivot XT in Albion, Nebraska. On average in your field, going up and down hills, we're starting to see the XT rut less than an 11.2-38. Again, you saw my ankle going into the track of the 11.2-38. It was below my ankle. On the XT, it was kind of like ankle height or a little less. We're seeing less rutting overall. If we go over to the other spot, which is where the XT was really needed for this field, I'd say that it's hard to tell the difference in that particular spot. Now, I will say that our tires are going through 3 times the length of crappy area versus the 11.2-38, but overall, I think we're starting to see some patterns develop, and we plan on coming back here once a month until the corn's off. So we're really going to get a full picture by the time we're all done here. But I really just start to think that we're starting to see some of those storylines develop. We're going to show you again and again and again how the Pivot XT performs compared to an 11.2-38 pneumatic tire in hills, in low ground, and all kinds of different terrain in this field. I'm Derek here with Evolution Wheel. We'll talk to you soon.